My birthday was on a Sunday. The sky was grey and I didn't plan to go out. I sat on the sofa with a cup of cold coffee. The TV was on, but I wasn't watching it. I felt tired, not from work, but from life. Then my brother came. He was smiling and holding a small box. "Happy birthday, Mia," he said. I tried to smile. "Thanks. You didn't have to." He laughed. "Just open it." I opened the box slowly. Inside was an old camera. The body was scratched, but the lens was clean. It looked simple and beautiful, like something from another time. "A camera?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "It was mine. But I want you to have it now." I looked at him, confused. "Why me?" He sat down beside me and said, "You need to see the world again, Mia." You stopped looking. His words stayed in my head. I used to love drawing, reading, walking around the city. But these days I only worked, ate, and slept. Every day felt the same. Maybe he was right. Maybe I really stopped looking. That night I turned the camera in my hands. It felt heavy, but warm. I pressed the button. Click. No film inside, but the sound made me smile. It felt like the start of something small, but alive. The next morning I looked out the window. The light was soft, and a cat was sitting on the wall. It looked back at me as if to say, "Come out." I took the camera, put on my coat, and stepped outside. The air was cold, but it felt new. I walked to the park near my house. Children were playing, old men were talking, and the wind moved the trees. Everything looked ordinary, but also beautiful. I lifted the camera and took a photo. Click. I looked through the small screen. The photo was a bit blurry, but I didn't care. It was my first picture. My heart felt light for the first time in months. I sat on a bench, holding the camera. A little boy ran past me laughing. His mother followed, calling his name. The sound of their laughter filled the air. I watched them and thought, maybe this is what my brother meant. When I went home, I placed the camera on my desk. It was just a simple machine, but it changed something in me. That night, I looked at my hands. They were warm again. I whispered to myself, I will see the world again. One picture at a time. The next weekend, the sun was bright and soft. I woke up early, made some toast, and looked at my camera. It sat quietly on my desk, waiting for me. I smiled and said, "Okay, let's go out." I walked to the park near my home. The grass was green after the rain. Children were running, people were walking dogs, and birds were singing. It felt peaceful. I saw a little girl chasing a yellow butterfly. She laughed and ran in circles. Her mother stood nearby, watching her with a smile. I stopped walking. Something about that moment felt special. I lifted my camera and looked through the lens. The girl's hair moved in the wind. Her small hands reached for the butterfly, but missed it. Still, she laughed again, happy just to chase it. I pressed the button. Click. That sound again. Simple, but full of life. The girl noticed me. She stopped and looked at me curiously. "Did you take a picture of me?" she asked. I smiled and nodded. "Yes, you looked very happy." She giggled. "Can I see?" I showed her the picture on the screen. It was a little blurry, but her smile was bright like sunlight. She looked at it and said softly, "I like it." Then she ran back to her mother. Her mother smiled at me and said, "Thank you." She loves butterflies. I answered, "She's beautiful when she smiles." The woman nodded. "You just caught her true self." Her words stayed in my mind. Her true self. I walked around the park and saw many faces. A man reading a book under a tree. A woman feeding pigeons. 2 boys kicking a ball and laughing loudly. I didn't take more pictures that day. I just looked. The light on people's faces, the sound of their laughter, the wind touching the leaves. Everything felt alive again. When I went home, I printed the photo of the little girl. I put it on my wall, right above my desk. The picture was not perfect, but it made me feel warm. It was the first thing I wanted to look at every morning. That night, I sat on my bed and looked at the photo again. Her smile looked brighter in the soft lamplight. For the first time in a long time, I felt a small hope growing inside me. Maybe the world was still full of beauty. Maybe I just needed to learn how to see it again. I whispered to myself, "One picture at a time, Mia. One picture at a time." After that day, I took my camera everywhere. It hung around my neck when I went to work. It sat beside me when I had coffee. Sometimes I didn't even take pictures. Just holding it made me feel calm. One Sunday morning, I walked through the city market. There were fruits, flowers, and people talking loudly. A man was selling oranges. His hands moved fast, and his smile was wide. I wanted to take his picture, but I felt shy. I stood there for a while. He noticed me and said, "You want some oranges?" I laughed a little. "Maybe later. Can I take your picture first?" He looked surprised, then smiled again. "Sure, but make me look good." I lifted my camera and took the photo. Click. He laughed. "I look like a movie star now." We both laughed. It was simple, but it made my heart warm. I kept walking and saw a group of old women selling handmade bags. They were talking and laughing together. Their faces were full of lines, but full of light too. I asked one of them, "Can I take your picture?" She said, "Of course, dear." "But wait, let me fix my hair." We both laughed again. After I took the photo, she said, "You're a kind girl. Keep taking pictures. The world needs eyes like yours." Her words touched me deeply. No one had said something like that to me in a long time. That afternoon, I sat in a small cafe. I looked through the photos on my camera. The man with the oranges, the old woman with the bright eyes. Each face had a story. Each photo felt like a heartbeat. The waiter came and said, "Are you a photographer?" I shook my head. "No, I just like taking pictures." He smiled. "That's what photographers say." His words made me laugh, but also think. Maybe I was becoming one. Not because I had skill, but because I had started to see. When I went home, I made a small photo wall in my room. I printed each picture and placed it carefully. There were smiles, wrinkles, eyes, and sunlight. It was like having many friends on my wall. Before sleeping, I looked at them again. I whispered, "Thank you for letting me see you." For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel lonely. I felt connected. One rainy afternoon, I went to the river. I liked the sound of the rain on the water. The city was quiet, and the sky was grey. I wanted to take some peaceful photos. I saw an old bridge and a man standing with an umbrella. The colours looked soft and beautiful. I took out my camera and focused. Then suddenly my foot slipped. I tried to hold the camera tight, but it fell. It hit a rock and dropped into the water. I froze. My heart stopped for a second. Then I ran to the edge, but the river was deep and fast. The camera was gone. I stood there in the rain. Cold water ran down my face, but I didn't care. Tears mixed with the rain. It wasn't just a camera. It was my new way of seeing life. And now it was gone. When I got home, I sat on the floor. My brother saw me and asked, "What happened?" I told him everything. He looked at me for a moment, then said, "Maybe you didn't lose it." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "It's gone." He smiled softly. "You still remember, right? The faces, the smiles, the light?" I was silent. I could see them in my mind. The man with oranges, the little girl, the old woman with bright eyes. Their smiles were still clear. He said, "Then you didn't lose anything. You just learned something." I didn't answer. I didn't know what to say. I went to my room and looked at the empty space on my desk. The camera was gone, but my wall of photos was still there. I stood in front of it for a long time. Each picture was full of life. I touched the photo of the little girl chasing the butterfly. Her smile felt like sunshine, even on this grey night. I whispered, "I remember." I still remember. Then I sat down and cried again, but it was different. It wasn't the heavy kind of crying. It felt light, like something inside me was opening. Maybe my brother was right. Maybe I didn't lose the camera. Maybe I just learned to see without it. That night, I left the window open. The rain had stopped. The city lights reflected on the wet street. I watched them quietly, thinking, even without a camera, I can still see the beauty. A few days passed after the rain. The air felt clean. I still missed my camera, but I didn't feel so sad anymore. Life went on, quietly. One morning, I walked to the same park again. The sunlight touched the leaves. Children were running. People were sitting on benches, drinking coffee and talking. Everything looked the same, but somehow it felt new. I sat under a tree and took out my phone. For a while, I just looked around. Then I opened the camera app. It felt strange, but also familiar. I took a picture of the sunlight through the leaves. Click. The sound was different, but the feeling was the same, warm, simple, alive. Then I saw an old man feeding birds. His hands moved slowly, carefully. The birds stayed near him, not afraid. I smiled and took another picture. He looked up and smiled back. He said, "Beautiful morning, right?" "Yes," I said, "it is." He nodded. "It always is, if you look for it." His words stayed in my heart. I walked around the park and kept taking pictures. A girl reading a book. A dog sleeping in the sun. A cup of coffee on a wooden bench. All small things, but full of life. When I went home, I looked at the photos on my phone. They were simple, nothing special. But each one made me smile. They were full of the world's quiet beauty. I posted one photo online. It was a picture of sunlight and falling leaves. I wrote a short line under it. Life is still beautiful, even when the camera is gone. That night, my brother sent me a message. He wrote, "You found your light again." I smiled at the screen and whispered, "Yes, I did." I turned off the light and looked out the window. The moon was bright, and the city looked peaceful. I felt soft and calm inside. The world hadn't changed, but I had. Now I take pictures every week. Sometimes with my phone, sometimes only with my eyes. Because I know now, the real picture lives not in the camera, but in the heart that sees it.